Hi, welcome to Train Signal. My name is Bill and this lesson is create libraries, lists, and tasks. In this lesson we're going to do just that. We're going to take libraries, lists, and tasks and do some basic things with them. I'm going to show you how to create each one, create each app, and then we're going to go ahead and do some basic things like we'll add some documents to the library, some list items, and we'll schedule a few task items. These are probably the three most common things that people do with SharePoint team sites. These are going to be the most popular, and I'll show you even the folks at Microsoft definitely have found that these are the three most popular things. So it's even if you're not going to be using these features in SharePoint as the administrator, it's probably worth it for you to watch this lesson so you can learn when somebody comes to you and say, hey, how do I create a new list? How do I create a new library? That you have that knowledge and you can show them exactly what to do or do it for them, get it started for them. So let's go ahead and let's get started. All right, we're back here at our GlobalMantic Operations team site. And when we look at it, it's a little bit different than it was from the very first time we accessed this site. Remember, we had all of those tiles with those little scrolling windows on there to allow us to add apps and other things, share our documents, customize the page, but those are gone. We took those off in a previous lesson. So now you're looking and you're saying, well, how do I add an app? There's no longer a tile for that. Don't panic. All you need to do is go over here to Site Contents, and it brings us to this page, and look at that. Right on the top, Add an App. So we're going to do that. We're going to click there, and we will see that we have all kinds of apps that we can add. We'll go to the next page. There's actually two of them, and these are all out of the box. These are all right here. They come with SharePoint, and we can use any of them very quickly and easily. Now, up at the top, we see Noteworthy, and these are the three we're going to deal with: the document library, custom list, and tasks. So this is exactly what I was telling you before. Obviously, the folks at Microsoft have realized that these are the three most popular, the three most commonly used apps that we have in SharePoint. So they put them right here at the top of the list so that we can access them quickly and easily. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to click on our document library, and it brings up the Add a Document Library window where we can just simply type in the name and click on Create, and it'll create that document library for us. But what I want to do is go over here to the left, and you see the advanced options. Let's click on there, because this will give us a little bit more information. It'll give us a chance to do a couple of more things to our document library. Now, these things can all be done after the fact, so don't do these now. You're not going to be able to. They're all still going to be there and accessed probably through the library settings. What we want to do is first give it a name, and this is going to be a document library for floor plan information. These are going to be floor plans and things like that for our office space, our networking diagrams, layouts for furniture, who's got what where, all the kinds of things operations would deal with. We could go ahead and give it a description if we needed to. It's not necessary for us. We understand what's going on. Do we want to give the document library the ability to receive email? Yeah, of course we do. And if you watched our lesson on configuring incoming and outgoing email, you saw us do this through the library settings. But this is essentially the same exact thing. We need to go ahead and give it an email address. So we'll just call this one plans@gmsp13.globalmantic.com. Do we want to turn on versioning? We're not going to do that now. We're not going to do that for this library. This is a whole subject that we can do an entire lesson on in another course. I'm dealing with one that would specifically deal with SharePoint and Office, and that's not why we're here. So we're going to leave that alone. And by default, our document library, we've talked about uploading documents and working with documents, our document libraries being a place to store our documents. But what you may not know is that you can actually create a document through the document library. And when you do that, by default, our document libraries are set up to use Microsoft Word and bring you a blank Microsoft Word document. What it's actually going to do is just open up Word on our local computer and save it right to the document library. And that's what it does by default. But if you select this list, little drop down here, it opens up and you'll see that we can make our default document a number of different types of Office documents. I could go ahead and have the default be an Excel spreadsheet. So if this were the finance team site and the document library for finance documents, they might want to have it so that if they created a document through the library, that it opens up automatically as an Excel spreadsheet. So this is a really good thing to know that this is here. You can also go ahead and create your own content types and add them to this document library as well. But again, that's another thing for another day. So we're good here. Let's go ahead and create. There's our document library. Now when we first access it, it opened up with the ribbon already exposed, but let's go home and take a look. We see our link here on our quick launch, and this is what the library is going to look like when you come to it initially. But you can always open the ribbon simply by clicking on the Library tab or the Files tab, depending on what you want. Now, actually, let's start at the Files tab. We're going to go ahead and we are going to add a new document. We can click there and simply go to our Browse button. It opens to my documents, and I want this one here, Building Floor Plan. Going to choose OK, and there it is. It uploaded the document from my local computer, from my documents, right up to our SharePoint server. Now I can also go ahead here and click on Upload Document. It's going to bring me to the same place. Or I can also, you see where it says Drag Files Here? This is a great new feature in 2013. Let's go ahead. I'm going to open up my File Explorer, open up my Documents library, and simply select the documents that I want. I don't want that one. I want this one. Let's take this one, and this one. And, yeah, what the heck, let's just take them all and figure it out later, right? And all I got to do, I'm holding down my left mouse button. I'm going to just drag over here. And you see how I got that blue highlight there? That blue box. Now, we're not seeing it all because, remember, I'm limited by my recording resolution here. If I were using this full screen on my monitor, I would be able to push this window over a little bit more to the side, but I want you to see that blue box that's going to outline that whole area. Let me close this now and see that it's uploading all of those documents right now very quickly at one time. That's pretty quick and fast and easy, isn't it? That beats going ahead and clicking them and selecting them and uploading them one at a time. Pretty cool. And if I wanted to open one of these up, I simply click here, and you can see it's spinning, it's waiting. And it opened up this document through the Excel Services app that we installed when we ran the Farm Configuration Wizard. Now, this is not the web app. This is not the Excel web app. We haven't done that yet, but we will. That's going to be a lesson that's coming up. This is at least a way to go ahead and look at this data, even if you can't do anything right here in the browser other than look at it. Now, you'll see I have the option to open in Excel, which I could do, and it would open up this document actually in my Excel on my local machine. But we're not really about that today. This is all about uploading documents and creating that document library. Now let's take another look over here. On our ribbon, all the way over to the left, we see New Document. And I want you to notice that these buttons, many of them, not this one or this one, but this one, is broken up into two sections, the top and the bottom. Now if I click on the top, what's going to happen is it's going to open up Word, and it's going to give me a new blank Word document. Now if I click on New Document, I'm going to get a list. Now, we only have one thing in the list because that's all we added. We just added that default Word template. But if we added other content types or other templates, this whole list would be in here of the types of documents we want. But we just have the one, which is fine. So I'm going to click here, and it's saying, do you want to allow to open this file? Yeah, that's fine. It's going to go ahead, open up Word on my computer and get me here and choose OK. I will enable editing, and now I can go ahead and create a document. I'll simply put in document. I will save it. I can save it right here to my current folder. I'm going to call this one test. Save, and I don't know if you saw that real quick down there. It said uploading to SharePoint. But if I close this now, I know you don't see it. Wait, we got to refresh. There it is. And that's a document library. A couple other things we can do is we can set up alerts on this document library, and we've seen this before. We can go ahead and create a new folder. We can actually have a folder structure in our libraries. So there's my database folder. So I am going to grab that database file and simply drag it into there along with this one. And if I open up that folder, you see that it gives me both of those in there. We go to library. In here, again, we have more stuff we can go ahead and do, but these things are all for another course, another day, another time. So that's how we go ahead and we create a document library and add some documents to it. All right, let's go back home and move on to our next task. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to create a custom list. And once more, we'll go to our site contents, and look at that. There's our new document library. Woohoo! And we will add an app for a custom list. And again, we have the same thing over here, but if we go to the advanced options in here, we don't have any of that other information for this list. We simply have a place for a name and a description. So we're going to call this one, this list is going to be inventory, because we are going to create a list of the available office furniture. So we will hit create, and there is our new list. And again, if we simply go here, this is how it's going to show up without the ribbon open, but we see our tabs up here, so we can open the ribbon. And we can add new items simply by clicking on that big button there. And I'm going to add something, let's say, how about cubicle wall, 6 foot. Save that, and we see that we have a listing for 1 cubicle wall. Let's add another one. Let's go ahead and put in executive desk. And like that. We can also go ahead here to items and add a new item this way. Again, 2 different ways to do the exact same thing. This time let's add an executive credenza. Man, I wish I had an executive credenza. All right, so now we've got a few items in our list. Let's take a look at our tabs up here, and we'll see again standard kinds of things that we've seen in our library: alerts, RSS feed, we can tag items. And you're probably sitting here thinking, well, okay, this is just a list. Why would I necessarily want to have a list like this in SharePoint? What can I do with this list? How's it going to help me? Well, I want you to think of this list as not just what we're doing here, but think of this in terms of what would you do with this data. This is data. This list is data. Think about things like dashboards, KPIs, charts, information, and being able to manipulate it. And these are all really cool things that we can do with SharePoint. And again, we're not getting into that. That's not what this course is about. But I do want to show you, and I want you to think of this list as an Excel spreadsheet. It has columns and rows just like you would see in Excel. This, the title, is a column. We only have 1 column here. But we also have rows. We have 3 rows of data. But we can add more columns. We can add more data that would make this list more useful to us. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go over here to list settings. And when we scroll down a little bit here, we see that we have columns. And this is the column that is required. It's the only column that we're using. We can go ahead and add other columns and look at all of the columns that we have. Things like a custom ID number. So if you add that and you have an inventory number on these items, all of a sudden now you're thinking this list is becoming a little bit more useful, isn't it? How about the department? Which department does that piece of furniture belong to? What about a description? We can also, let's click OK, create our own custom columns. Now we're certainly not going to do any of that, but it is available for us to go ahead and do. So let's go back to our list now and see that we have a customer ID number and the department. So if we open up this item, let's edit it. We have two new fields now. So if I had an inventory number, and let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but let's say we had something a little bit more interesting. Let's say that this is operations. This particular furniture piece belongs to the operations department. So let's save that. And now, what if we had an ID number that had some sort of information in it that allowed us to group things together? Now, I know that I meant to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I typed in I. So what if that I was an identifier, like it belonged to a particular department or belonged to a particular office? We could then go ahead and sort and rank things or use data analysis tools of SharePoint to go ahead and group things by that identifier. So it's not just a list, it's a really powerful data analysis tool if you need it. Now, if you don't need it and you just needed a list, it could also just be a simple list. But it's very, very powerful and very useful. And you can also, let's go back to our list tab, notice that you can also export these lists to Excel or into Access as well. So lists are very cool, very useful. All right, let's go ahead and let's move on. All right, now it's time for us to go ahead and create a task list. Our task list, we're going to create tasks. We're going to assign the tasks to individuals. We're going to give them a date, a due date, and we're going to be able to see that task list in a timeline and also on a calendar. So a lot of really cool things. And once more, we go right to Site Contents. And there, look at that, 2 new apps. Let's go ahead and add our third one, Tasks. Now we have to give our task list a name. And this one is going to be called Office Inventory, because we saw in that last section we had a list, an inventory list of our furniture, available furniture and whatnot, but it wasn't complete. So we need to assign the task of taking inventory to various people. We're going to have inventory of our furniture, of office equipment, and our computers, our IT equipment. And this task list is going to be a great way for us to go ahead and organize that and keep track of it. We're going to be able to see it in a timeline. We're going to be able to see it in a calendar view, and it will help us to manage these tasks. And further on down the line, we're going to be able to see on everybody's individual My Site page, they're going to be able to pull those tasks into that My Site page, and they'll be able to see exactly what tasks have been assigned to them and all the information. So we will create our task list. And yes, I did call it a task list because it is still just a list like the custom list we just created. It just has specific features and properties to it that you would want and expect in a task list. So let's go ahead, let's open up that task list, and let's assign our first new task. Now the first task is going to be taking the furniture inventory. And this is someone who is going to have to go and figure out who's got what furniture where. We'll give it a start date. Now, I happen to know that this person already started this task, so last Monday. So we'll put it there, and we're giving them 2 weeks, so we'll make it through to the 15th. And who was the person that we gave this task to? Well, in fact, it was, or it's going to be, I should say, Jerry Watts, our administrative assistant. Now, over here, you see we have a section that says Show More. Let's click that, and we have a few more options that we can fill out about this task. Now, for one, I happen to know that Jerry is already 50% completed with that task, so we're going to mark that down. We can add a description, an inventory of office furniture, predecessors. Now, we have the ability to list tasks that have to happen before this one can take place. Now, this one we don't have any predecessors, so we're not going to have anything to add, but we'll see in a future task that we are going to be able to add those. We can give it a priority, and we have high, low, and normal, and the task not started. Well, this one is in progress. Like I said, Jerry has already started this task. So we're going to go ahead and click on Save. And there is our first task, Furniture Inventory. Now, you see these little buttons here? That is the menu about this task. Let's click on that. And you see it gives me a little bit more of the information. 6 days until it's due. I can open it. I can add it to a timeline. I can create a subtask. If we open it, it simply brings me to this page and it gives me all the information as we've added it. And if I go over here, I can click on Edit Item. Looks familiar, doesn't it? This is almost exactly where we just were, only everything is open for editing now. So we can edit those items. If the item was completed, if the task was done, I could click in the checkbox and it would be marked completed. But it's not completed, so we're going to leave that just like it was. And we're going to add another new task. Now we could add it here, or we can go up here to our ribbon, click on the Tasks tab, and add new item this way. And this one is going to be the IT inventory. Somebody's going to need to take inventory of all of our computers, tablets, routers, modems, whatever we have. This one we're going to say it will start next Monday and continue on until the 22nd. And we're going to assign this one to Angelo Haley. And I'm going to open up the Show More again because now I want you to see there's that predecessor, the furniture inventory. And it's not necessary that the furniture inventory be completed before we start this one, so we're not going to add it, but it's there if we need it. Angelo has not started this task, and we're going to leave the priority alone and the task status alone. So that's great. So we'll save that. And now we have task number 2. Now let's go ahead and let's add one more. This one is going to be to compile the complete. You know, that's too long. Let's just call it compile inventory. And the start date for this one, let's make this one a little bit later. Let's say this one's going to start on April 1st, and it's going to finish April 12th. How about that? And this one is going to be assigned to Bill Altman, our Director of Operations. Now, if I know Bill, he's going to pass this job off onto somebody else. But let's go ahead and let's click on Show More here. And we'll see our predecessors again, but this time, to compile that complete inventory, both of these are going to have to be done. These predecessor tasks are going to have to be done. So we're going to add those just like you saw. And we'll go ahead, the priority on this one, let's change it to high, and we'll click on Save. So now, there is our task list. Now you saw how I could go ahead and click here and go to my menu here and edit the item that way, but also I can go ahead and click up here to edit the entire list. See how it opens it up that way, and I can go through here and edit each individual thing, or open it up this way by double clicking on that there. So it's another way to do the same thing. And it also gives me a blank space here to just add another task if necessary. And when I'm done editing, I can just click on Stop and take us back to here. Now, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this again, I want you to see where it says Add to Timeline. You see our timeline up here. We can go ahead and click and add that to the timeline, and now it gives me that task in that timeline. And of course, the timeline is kind of silly with just one item in it, so we're going to add all of our items, and we can go ahead and add them this way, or we can also go ahead and go up to the tasks. Actually, let me select all of the tasks except for this one because that's already added. We can go up to tasks, and notice here we have Add to Timeline. So I'm going to click there, and it added both of those tasks that I had highlighted here that I have selected it to my timeline. And if I click on the timeline, I have timeline tools. Another tab, contextual tab, opens up. I can add the start and finish date for the project. I can take any of these off, but without the dates, it seems kind of silly to me. I can take off the today marker, the time scale, but I like to have all of that information in here. I can change the date formats. I can even go ahead and change the way the timeline looks. Now, let's select the furniture inventory, and you see I can display it as a callout, which if I hover over it, notice that that opens. Or I can go back, I have to select it, there it is, to displaying it as a bar. And I can remove it from the timeline as well, just like that. Now I can also go ahead and view my tasks in a calendar view. And you'll see right here at the top, big as day, it says calendar. That link, I click on it and see that it takes me down and gives me the calendar view there. So I can view this however I need to, however I want to. And of course, I have calendar options as well, things like alerts, email links, and even being able to tag it and edit. And that's our task list. Pretty cool, very useful. And like I said, later on we'll see how we can pull these tasks into our own personal MySites, into our news feeds. Well, that's it for this lesson, gang. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.